Hi everyone, happy Whiskey Wednesday. This is Savor at Home number 66. So this weekend we had the first neat blind tasting event of 2021 and it was holiday spirits. So there were 3 different spirits that we tasted that all had wonderful flavors of holiday treats. And of course you can't do a holiday themed tasting without tasting a Midwinter Night's Dram by High West. Some of the participants who were doing the tasting also had a whiskey advent calendar, and included in the whiskey advent calendar was a sample of a Midwinter Night's Dram. But that was Act 7, and during the tasting this weekend we tried Act 8, and they noticed that there was a difference between the two. So it was suggested, or it was requested, that I taste Act 7 and Act 8 side by side. For those who have never had Midwinters, it is produced by High West Distillery and they are in Utah. High West does have a location in Park City. It is the only ski up saloon that exists, so a pretty cool location. And what they're doing for Midwinters is High West is blending some MGP rye with some of the rye that they create and then finishing in port barrels, French oak port barrels to be exact. Now this is the same whiskey that they bottle as Rendezvous Rye, so it's a combination of 95% rye, 5% malt that MGP makes, and blended with their 80% rye, 20% malted rye that they produce in-house at High West Distillery. They take their Rendezvous rye and then they finish it in French oak port barrels. So you get that spiciness from the French oak and you get the port flavors, so kind of that rich, decadent fruit flavors coming in from the port. Now rye already has tons of spice to it as well, so enhancing it with the French oak and the port makes for something that is really, really delicious and really, really tastes like Christmas. So without further ado, I'm going to taste them side by side. So I'll do the nose side by side and then I'll do the palate side by side as well and kind of compare them as I go. So Act 7 was released in 2019, Act 8 in 2020, and you can see that there is essentially no color difference. I can't tell the difference. So tons of spice. It's got cardamom in here, chocolate covered cherries. It's a dark chocolate. There's a little bit of rye spice, some mandarin orange, apricots, some oregano. Act 8 has more fruit on the nose. It's more like cherries soaked in syrup. It's a little musty. There's still that spice. Still has that like oregano thing, the dried herbs, cinnamon. It feels like there's a little bit less going on in the nose in Act 8. Yeah, there's definitely more spice, more fruit, more aroma in the nose of Act 7. So let's go for palate. Wonderful creamy mouthfeel. It's warming with a little bit of heat, but it's really not too bad. And then you just get a big punch in the face of rye spice. It's really wonderful, really, really nice. Cinnamon bark, there's nutmeg and star anise. There's also some of that fruitiness coming through, tons of red fruits, red berries, dried strawberries, dried cranberries, definitely. And the finish is a nice dark chocolate. Tad bit drying in the finish, but really, really lovely. A huge, huge pack of flavors here. So Act 8, the mouthfeel is also just as wonderful, really creamy, a little bit of that warming heat, but it's nice. And then you get different types of spices coming in. So it's not quite so much rye spice. You get more of like the dill pickly rye spice that comes through that you can tend to get in MGP ryes. Lots of cinnamon. The fruit is a little bit more subdued on this one than on Act 7. Pink peppercorns. There's caramel in the background. Also a little bit of a drying finish. They're both really, really delicious. They both taste so much like Christmas. But I would have to say that out of the two, Act 7 would probably be my go-to. There's just a lot more going on, a lot more spice, a lot more fruitiness, whereas Act 8 is a little bit more balanced in the spice that comes through, and some of that fruitiness actually tastes more mature, if that makes sense. It's a little bit like dusty candies. Yes, these are both really, really wonderful whiskeys. So if you can get your hands on a Midwinter Night's Dram, any of the acts are going to be amazing. So highly recommended.